Welcome back in. Today we're discussing our week 2 running back rankings and some of our must-start plays of the week. Let's go ahead and get right to it. And we're going to start with our RB1s, and they are as follows. Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, Jameer Gibbs, Chase Brown, Saquon Barkley, Ashton Jeanty, Kyron Williams, Josh Jacobs, James Conner, Bucky Irving, and Devon Achane. So let's talk about a few of these RB1s that we have here. First, I want to talk about Chase Brown. One of the most important aspects of week 1 was seeing how usage would be handed out for some of these running backs. While it is only a 1 week sample size, it should be taken lightly and not completely overreact. We can still take a look at how things trend moving forward. Chase Brown handled 73% of the snaps and 100% of the rush attempts. He did lose some work, though, on third downs and 2-minute work to Samaje Perine. However, he still ended up with 23 total touches and a 13% target share, which is an elite workload for any running back. One area of concern last season was his efficiency numbers. While it is only one game, he was credited with 7 missed tackles forced, which is the most of any running back. And his 2.52 yards after contact was also top 10. So those are also encouraging signs. Next up, though, is a matchup against the Jags, who allowed the 15th most PPR points to Carolina last week. Keep in mind, the Jags dominated this game and limited the ground game from the Panthers. Chase Brown is a borderline top 5 running back this week. Let's keep it moving. We're going to move over to Ashton Jeanty. There's been plenty of talk surrounding Jeanty and his measly 2.0 yards per carry this past week against the Patriots. First, it's just one game. Second, his workload was exactly what we expected it to be. He handled 19 of the 20 total rush attempts. He ran 22 routes, which is also top 15. But his 2 targets ranked 26th among running backs. I want to point something out, though, about his insanely low yards per carry. Here's a list of running backs for week 1 that averaged below 3 yards per carry. Bijan Robinson, Chase Brown, Kenneth Walker, Bucky Irving. Also running backs who averaged less than 3.5 yards per carry, which is also really bad, are Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, James Conner, and Omari and Hampton. So I'm not taking too much from this. I know we like to pick and choose what narratives we go with when it comes to certain players. And it seems to be like there's a hive of people that are hoping Ashton Jeanty fails. It is not something to be worried about. I care way more about the volume that he saw, because when it comes to running backs, volume is king. Jeanty will have better performances than 12 PPR points he scored on Sunday. Don't panic. In fact, he's a terrific buy low if someone is scared of this performance. So I like Ashton Jeanty. I mean, he is going to continue to perform, especially with how much volume he's going to continue to see. Next up, let's talk about Bucky Irving really quick. I just wanted to point out, finishes the RB14 in week 1, but his usage is the thing that I really wanted to point out here. He played 77% of the snaps and ran a route on 70% of Stroud's dropbacks last week, which was top 8 among all running backs. While his 14.5 PPR points were fine, especially with how poor so many players were last week, the encouraging part, though, is the fact that he had 81% of the backfield touches, and that should allow it to be a top 5, top 6 running back rest of season. So this is a little bit of a tougher matchup this week against Houston, but still, this pass catching work and how many routes he is running is going to make him a weekly top 10 running back. And I think he can actually finish the top 5 running back if this continues. So next up is going to be James Conner. He's RB10 for me. Heading into the season, the thought was that James Conner was going to once again be the workforce back. Last season, he handled 70% of the touches. However, in week 1, that dropped to 60% of the touch, with Trey Benson handling nearly 40% of remaining touches. This is certainly noteworthy and something to monitor, but he's still seeing the majority of the high-value touches in the red zone. Next up is a phenomenal matchup, though, against the Carolina Panthers, who look like they will once again be a great weekly matchup for running backs. They allowed 170 total yards and to Travis Etienne company last week. On the week, they allowed the 5th most PPR points, and making Conner a very strong RB1 play this week. Now, let's move over to the RB2s, and they are as follows. Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor, James Cook, Omari and Hampton, Travis Etienne, Chuba Hubbard, Javonte Williams, Alvin Kamara, Tony Pollard, DeAndre Swift, Kenneth Walker, and Travion Henderson. First guy I want to hit on in this group is going to be Breece Hall. Breece Hall haters were pretty quiet after week 1 performance against the Steelers. He finished with 107 rushing yards on 19 carries and 34 receiving yards on 2 receptions. He absolutely dominated the backfield touches, 23-6 to Braylon Allen. His 19% target share was also very encouraging. Breece looked like his old self, and he may end up as one of the better values being drafted in the 3rd round. While there will be weeks where he's frustrating to start, and Justin Fields inevitably is going to take some goal line work from him, the usage makes him a very strong RB1 on most weeks. I currently have him as my RB13, and I really tried to get him in my top 12. I think he is more of an RB1 this week, especially with the matchup, because the Bills just allowed Derrick Henry to rush for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. Going back to last season, the Bills were terrible against opposing running backs as well, allowing the 5th most PPR points. This is a very good matchup for Brees Hall, provided he maintains the same workload. The only concern here is going to be game script. Can the Jets keep this game close enough to allow him to see that type of usage? Let's keep it moving here. Let's talk about Jonathan Taylor. Week one was frustrating for Jonathan Taylor owners with the Colts blowing the doors off the Dolphins in week one. Taylor played all 43 of the offensive snaps in the first half, but with the Colts having the game well in hand, JT getting dinged up with a neck injury, we saw DJ Giddens actually handle 75% of the touches in the second half, leading to a mediocre 12 PPR points for Taylor in week one. The two things to take away here, though, is a close game. JT is still true bell cow back, and on most weeks will be an easy top 5 to 7 running back. The second part is if anything happens to JT, DJ Giddens is the clear replacement and a player I'd have stashed on my bench as a potential RB1. This week, the Colts do have a brutal matchup against the best defense in the league. The Broncos limited Tony Pollard and the Titans rushing attack to just 60 yards and on 25 total attempts last week. While JT can still get there on pure volume, I'm a bit lower on him this week due to the matchup. Next up to me is going to be Omarion Hampton, RB16 versus the Raiders. Hampton handled 80% of the backfield snaps, 89% of the running back carries, and ran 53% of the routes. It all ranked inside the top 7 from last week. This is elite usage. And let's not forget he was going against a defense that was top 5 against the run in 2024. While his debut wasn't what owners hoped for, his early usage makes for a top 10 running back. Next up for Hampton is a Monday Night Football matchup against the Raiders. Should offer much more room to operate. Hampton is an upper end RB2 for me this week. Next up is going to be Travis Etienne going against the Bengals. I was much higher on Travis Etienne than consensus last week, while RB25 was still clearly not high enough as he finishes the RB6 in PPR formats, racking up 18.8 PPR points. He did so being the clear RB1, receiving 18 carries and turning that into 140 yards and catching all 3 targets for another 18 yards. Now, on Monday night, the Jags decided to trade Tank Bigsby and the Eagles, which leave rookie Bashaw Tootin and LaQuint Allen as the only running backs in this backfield. This just entrenched Etienne as the clear RB1, even though we knew that before the trade as he dominated the touches. Etienne now gets a matchup against the Bengals, who allowed the 14th most PPR points in 2024 and allowed the 9th most PPR points last week to the Browns back. Travis Etienne, I think, at least in the short term, is in a great spot. Now, yes, can things happen, becomes more inefficient and ineffective, and Bashaw Tootin starts touches? Yes, that is definitely in the range of possibility. I think when it comes to LaQuint Allen, I think he is just more of a pass catching running back. That's the only snaps that he played were on pass catching downs. Very short term, Travis Etienne's value went way up because of this, and he gets a great matchup against the Bengals. Next up, it's going to be Javonte Williams, RB19. We spoke about Javonte and the opportunity laid before him, but I did not know Jalen Carter would spit on Dak Prescott, getting himself thrown out of the game before one offensive snap. Javonte finished as the clear RB1. He played 80% of the snaps, 79% of the rush attempts, 71% route participation, and he had a 9% target share. And he received 5 of 6 touches inside the red zone. While he may not get back to being the back he was coming into the league, he certainly looked better than any point he did last year. He finished last week as the RB2 overall in PPR formats, due in large part because of the 2 touchdowns he scored. But as a player who was drafted in the 9th or 10th round, he is on track to vastly outperform that ADP. He should be in a good spot to build off what he did last week, as the Cowboys should dictate this game against the Giants. Next up, let's talk about Alvin Kamara. Look, everything we were concerned about when it comes to Kamara coming into the season played out on Sunday against the Cardinals. While he did receive a healthy 16 carries, his 2 targets is exactly what we were afraid of when it comes to Kellen Moore coming over as the head coach. Moore routinely has never used running backs in the passing game, and that is the key to Kamara's weekly upside, especially in an offense as bad as the Saints project to be this season. Next up, though, the Saints will get a 49ers defense that bottled up Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker to under 3.5 yards per carry on the day. While there are plenty of questions with the 49ers offense, we have far less on the defensive side of the ball. So if Kamara is not going to be seeing regular usage in the passing game, it severely limits his upside. And somebody that just becomes a little bit more of a low-end RB2. Hopefully things change and they do start to include him more in the passing game. But right now, this was very concerning. This is exactly what we were concerned with coming into the season when it comes to Kamara. Next up is going to be Kenneth Walker, RB22. And I don't even know if I should have him this high. And maybe the most surprising outcome of week one, though, Kenneth Walker only received 10 carries and 2 targets, while Charbonnet received 12 carries but received no targets. Charbonnet ended up playing 29 snaps and 20 for Walker. The real question we need to really know is were they just easing him back in after missing all of training camp and most of the preseason work? Or is this a trend moving forward? I'm not ready to write out Kenneth Walker, but it would be ridiculous to not shift expectations at this point. I think right now both are viable flex plays. Default anybody wanting to sit him if they have better options. Brutal first week for Kenneth Walker, but I will say, things could definitely change. Again, maybe they were just easing him in. We'll have to see as things move forward here with Kenneth Walker, but I would limit expectations. Lastly, let's move over to our flex options for this week. First, I want to talk about Tyrone Tracy. Tracy and the Giants' offense was about as lackluster as you get last week. Tracy ended up finishing as the RB 36 after receiving 10 carries and 5 targets, but only managed 35 total yards. Now, for the positive, he played 72% of the snaps. He handled 67% of the rush attempts, while with a 13% target share. While the output is what we care about, the usage is encouraging and should still be viewed as the team's RB1 and a weekly flex option with RB2 upside. Jalen Ward next up here. We knew out the gate Jalen Ward would have a decent role, and Caleb Johnson would have to earn touches here in this backfield. What I did not expect, though, was Kenneth Gainwell playing the most snaps. This could end up turning into a three-way committee, making Ward just simply a low-end flex option on most weeks. Next up, Ja'Cory Krosky-Barrett. Bill looked very good in his debut against the Giants. While he did receive a huge workload, even with Chris Rodriguez a healthy scratch, he did make the most of his touches, carrying the ball 10 times for 82 yards and a score. He finishes the RB17 on the week. This was a very encouraging start and seems poised to take over the early down role with while Eckler maintains the pass catching role. It was a matchup against the Packers, who allowed the 12th most PPR points to the position. Though I will say a lot of that was due to the Lions targeting the running backs 14 times. Either way, I think this is a very encouraging sign for Ja'Cory Krosky-Barrett. He definitely now is as firmly in the RB3 flex option discussion. And if they continue to trend this well, he could end up becoming a very viable RB2. Next up is going to be Isaiah Pacheco. I was lower than consensus on Pacheco last week and will remain so again this week as they face one of the tougher run matchups and one where Jalen Carter doesn't get tossed out before the Chiefs take a snap. The other concern was that Pacheco received just 50% of the running back carries and a knock rate 8% target share. I will say Pacheco looked like he had his old juice back and is definitely better than Kareem Hunt. I think at some point this season we will see a shift to Pacheco as the lead back, but I don't think it's going to start this week against one of the best run defenses in the league. So if you could sit Pacheco this week, I have no problem doing so. Lastly, let's hit on RJ Harvey here. Harvey's role was pretty much what we thought it was going to be. He handled just 6 carries, but he racked up 70 yards on those limited touches. Dobbins finished with 53% of the snaps and 16 carries for 63 yards. He also had 2 catches for 5 yards and a touchdown. It was definitely clear that RJ Harvey is the more explosive running back here, but he will have to continue to earn touches away from J.K. Dobbins. I think at this point, RJ Harvey is simply just a flex option, and there's still some concern. I mean, because you can't expect him to, if he's only going to get 6 to 8 touches a game, you can't expect him to get 70 yards rushing like he did last week. So I think for now he's probably better suited on your bench. But if you're desperate, I definitely think he's somebody you can plug in as a flex option. So that being said, let me know in the comment section below if you have any questions, start sit questions. I'm sure to get to all of those. Let's hope that we have a much better football week because it was a brutal landscape last week for a lot of players last week. Hopefully we get some turnaround here and we get some better performances. So especially for some of our studs. Let me know in the comment section below if you have any questions. I'm sure to get to them. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.